for him?
Sure.
Just to remind him. The next time we play in this area is June the 5th. That's the date, Oakland Coliseum. With Starship
On the green.
Otherwise,
It'll just be the two of you talking, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're rolling anytime. Go ahead.
You gonna run my mic? Okay.
Yeah, both mics will be hot all the time.
Okay. So any noise will be picked up one way or the other. And if we don't like it, we could do it again because it's on tape.
Okay.
Okay.
We get out of here now. Would that be better? Like
Well,
squeaking chairs and stuff?
It will pick up, but it's all right.
I'm gonna split.
Okay.
Okay, I tell you, we'll
Make it a little easier for you.
Pat and I'll hang out in there, and you can stay in here, Ray, and offer
Thank you for the shots.
spirituals.
Oh, thank you. Could I have a copy?
Greg will pass it.
sure.
Right on.
Yeah,
Thank you, Carlos. for the
Thank you.
cooperation.
I like
Thank
my
you.
mom to have one.
Sure. And we'll talk to you after you get done.
Right on. Okay. I'm gonna do.
Hey, I'll make sure the door is shut tight.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna do a little bit of introduction, little lead in. Okay. Knock yourself out, George. Ready? In the late 60s, a new form of music was pioneered. The music was a collage of blues, salsa, and hard rock. The artful mix and blending of style gave birth to the Latin rock music. It's my pleasure to welcome the pioneer and the music master who changed the contemporary music scene, El Maestro de la Guitarra, Davandip Carlos Santana. Welcome, Cardinal.
Muchas gracias.
In the communities throughout the nation, you're looked upon as a hero. Most young Latinos look to you as someone they'd like to fashion their lives after. How do you feel about being a source of inspiration for millions of people?
I'm very grateful, for the position that has been bestowed upon me. At the same time, I feel it's my duty to remind everybody that we all are an instrument, a divine instrument, and a significant instrument. We are all put into the same position to inspire, to uplift, and to illumine the spirit. So we don't have to be always living in the so-called reality that we are doomed, no matter where you come from, no importa donde uno creció, donde naciste, we're not doomed, you just have to go within yourself, and eventually you realize that, that everything that you want, you will get in due time, according to how much you want it, it comes to you, it's a reality.
When you arrived on the music scene, I remember seeing one of the first posters that came out with the original Santana band. And the thing that caught my eye is that you're wearing a black leather jacket like a lot of vatos in the Mission. How does, a Latino from the city, become a person of success? What kind of dedication did it take? What kind of commitment did you have to make to success?
Well, first of all, some musicians, no matter what music they're playing, they feel that they get caught into a form of life where they have children or they don't. The commitment to the music, let's say, it's not 24 hours a day. They play a couple of hours, and then fortunately or unfortunately they need another extra job. So maybe they wash dishes or they do another kind of thing. If you're into music and you want to really, really become the best that you can be, you have to give it 24 hours a day. You have to sacrifice something. It doesn't mean that I'm not saying that you have to make your family starve, but you do have to eventually come to terms with yourself and say, if I want to be a musician 24 hours a day. Even when you're asleep, be a musician. And eventually, if you keep breathing the reality that that's all you want to be, after a while people can't help but say, man, he's a musician. And after a while, whatever you're seeking for, it comes to you.
Many young Latinos starting out in life have a bad self-image. They see themselves as something of little worth to society. In starting out, what motivated you to practice? What kept you from being discouraged in your quest for success?
Well, the first thing is that I never look for success. I look for progress. I look for myself I wanted something that I feel that only time and myself could get it. You know, at the time that was my reality. You know, and that was a position that I could play any kind of music. You know, whether it's boleros or Mexican folk music or Afro or whatever. I just wanted to be a musician that can paint and can project all kinds of music. I didn't really get down on my knees and say, God, give me name and fame and money and all these things. These things, they weren't my first or my last or in between first desire. My first thing was to feel that, you know, I could go to any club or any place or any part of the world and play with anybody. That's my first motivation.
On the Caravanserai album, a lyric on the tune Stoneflower spoke of tears of joy have come to me. The lyric was in reference to the exhilarating feeling of becoming a renewed person. In discovering a better lifestyle, how has the quality of your life and your music improved by your rebirth?
Well, for one thing, I have more of a tremendous clarity in my mind as far as distinguishing, you know, between reality and unreality, between death and immortality, between real and the unreal. You know, I can discriminate more easily between temporary joy, temporary temptations, temporary desires, and I think I'm stronger as an individual to make my ego work for me rather than me to work for my ego. You know, in other words, I can distinguish between my human ego, which is full of false pride, false vanity, and my illuminant ego, you know, which is my divine personality. You know, if you look at all through history, you find out that history is carved because some man had tremendous ego. But his ego, now we have to redefine whether it was divine or undivine ego, like, you know, because that's what separates the man from the boys, you know, I think, you know, because if you have divine ego, then you're constantly, your ego is like a elephant, you know. You can either destroy a village or you can create a village, you know. Now the divine ego is you can create, and after a while, you know, you carve your name towards immortality, you know, in a good place, you know.
You're known for your mystical instrumentals. The most notable are Samba Pa Ti, and on your new album Amigos, the tune Europa. What forces inspire you to create such moving, intricate works of art?
Well, from the technical point of view, from the outer point of view, I think it's me growing up in the streets in Tijuana and listening to a lot of boleros and a lot of trios, you know, like Los Dandies and Los Panchos, music like this. Because this is what I heard, this is the feeling that I grew up with. But inwardly, at the same time, you go beyond technique, you go beyond notes, you go beyond the position in the guitar, and all you have is the sound that comes from within, you know. Because all that technique, all that time learning experiences in the streets, it doesn't mean anything if your soul's not into it, you know. So mainly what motivates me is the same thing that motivates me when I get up in the morning, is realizing that, you know, if I can keep reminding myself that I'm not here for my namesake, I'm here because it's like a candle, you know. A candle is nothing if it's not lit.
True.
You know, and that's my reality, you know.
A couple of questions that Mark wants you to ask for him, so when you're done.
On your latest release, Amigos, it seems that you're getting it back to a more Latin sound, more Latin bottom, and it seems you're doing more soul tunes. How's the music changing?
Well, we have four soul brothers in the band, so it's inevitable that the band has to go different ways. The thing about the Santana band that I always feel proud of is that the Santana band that's exactly what it is. It's not my band. It's a band, period. And anybody who identifies itself with the band and can create music, we give him a good opportunity for him to express his songs, his feelings, his culture, his way of life, and to the band, because that's what makes the Santana band is strength, a unity. I don't want to be Carlos Santana and these guys and they just play like robots for me. I mean, I want everybody to, like a wave in the sea, just to really be part and parcel of the whole thing.
A lot of your tunes now, especially on Amigos, you deal with the same kind of bottoms and same kind of melodies as you did on Evil Ways, Black Magic Woman, Oye Como Va, which were like 3 of your bigger hits. Can you reflect on those? Why did they become successful? Why did those tunes become successful?
Because people, as a layman, they're very, very simple. It's hard for them to understand the theory of music. They don't want to hear that. They just want to hear street practicality, let's say, and you did this to me, and I'm going to do this to you, and but there's another way. I mean, you can keep the simplicity in the music, and you can give a message that you don't actually put anybody against the wall, but you inspire them. You don't necessarily try to influence anybody. You try to inspire them, like you say, because there's a great difference between influencing somebody and inspiring. When you influence somebody, you're imposing your trip on somebody else. But when you're inspiring somebody, they can't help. It's just like when you walk into a flower shop, you can't help but totally think differently, because the consciousness of the flowers puts you in a whole other place. You don't realize, you lose your so-called human, which is between animal and man, and you become more of a divine, which is what flowers are, because everything that they have, they just offer it.
Right.
Their colors and their perfume.
Latin rock evolved from salsa. What do you think of contemporary salsa music, the things that Willie Colon's doing, Rebareto, Palmere, lo que sea?
I like Eddie Palmieri a lot. I think that the best Latin player that, I always look for innovations and pioneering. I don't particularly want to be one of those, but I do admire him very much. And I think that one of the greatest Latin players is Chick Corea. If he can really get down montunas and all that kind of stuff, but he chooses not to sound like a scratch record, man, and play the same thing every album and just change the name. And most of that, all that salsa music, man, it comes from Cuba, old Cuba.
Sure.
So whoever's got more Cuban records comes out with the newest songs, because they just change the lyrics and change the,
That's
motifs.
True. That's true.
So I'm really interested in keeping a lot of the sound. Like the New Weather Report, it has got a lot of salsa in it.
Yeah.
It got timbales, but it's unique. It's very precious the way they use Latin percussions. It's not monotonous that you hear it gunka 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 for 3 hours. I appreciate that, man, because then it's like going to a restaurant and they don't serve you just one thing. You have a lot of little things,
Yeah, collage.
But I like all these people. I grew up with them.
Do you see any difference between, say, East Coast music and West Coast music? Is there such thing as a San Francisco sound?
The San Francisco sound is more fresher to me. The New York sound has got infinitely more fire, more dynamism in a lot of ways, because, just to live in New York, you have to be very on your toes, constantly full of backbone and all these things, because what motivates most New Yorkers, I think, is a competition, and the practicality where it's competition, Here in California, man, when people write songs, they're not necessarily competing with anybody. They got up with close to the beach or the sound of flowers. I mean, that's what California is known for. It's a fresher approach. I wouldn't say it's Hawaii or Puerto Rico. Yet San Francisco's got a fresh new sound that it's more natural. I mean, to me, it's more natural because I guess I live here.
Right. What does the future of local rock music look like? Where do you think it's going to go? Is it going to go into jazz more? It's going to go into different forms of expression, the local scene?
I think it's gonna go back into more romantic.
Mhm.
You know, more of a not so plastic and decadent. You know, with a lot of makeup and a lot of gimmicks on the stage. I think he's gonna go back to like the relationship between a man and a woman, as a man and as a woman. You know, and I think the best music that ever came out this century is music like that. Music that, you know, Agustin Lara and things that Mona Lisa, you know, just like Mona Lisa, things that you hear them once and you know that they're eternal. They're not just going to be here next month and they hit hard, and after a while nobody ever wants to hear the song. You know, so beautiful haunting melodies and simplicity.
What do you do, you know, when you have days off, when you're not working, you know? What makes you happy? You know, what are your hobbies?
Going to Tower Records and getting some new music and catching up with the rest of the world, see what everybody's out to send to.
What kind of advice would you give people in improving the quality of their lives?
If they're not satisfied with their lives, they have to know that the supreme reality is that we are all masters of our destiny.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you think that you're stuck in the poor side of Mission Street or the poor side of a ghetto, and this is all that you can be, you're a fool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're a fool because you have a brain and you have a heart, and if you take time to make the brain work for you, you know, then through the world, you know, the world won't offer you opportunities or open doors. You have to open them for yourself. Right. Non-violently, non-ruthlessly, without ignorance. With ignorance, we feel that we are doomed to constantly be slaves of some race, you know. But when you look at things with your heart, man, you realize that we are slaves already of our own stupidity.
True.
So if you educate yourself, take time. If you say, man, I'm going to be a dishwasher, then be a dishwasher. Be a 100% dishwasher. And after a while, you realize that you outgrow that job. Mm-hmm. And the manager of that restaurant or whatever you work can't help but say, man, you know, you're belittling yourself, man. You're great in what you do. Why don't you cook now? Or why don't you do this? Or why don't you handle my job? You know, but to go one step beyond is like, if you seek God first, you know, whatever you may find it, whether in Jesus or in your own heart, that's actually where He is. God is our own inner pilot, you know, and you ask Him, talk to Him like, if you're 20 years old, talk to Him like He's 20 years old. You know, if you're 8 years old, talk to me like He's 8 years old. And after a while, just tell Him what you want, you know. Whether it's good or bad, just ask Him. Then that way, everything else it does comes to you. You know, it's a universal law. Anything that you want, with a lot of fire, if you really want it, you get it. You know, you just have to be sure that that's what you really need.
Where will you be working in the months to come? What gigs are happening?
Well, we're doing the Day in the Green here in Oakland Coliseum on June 5th. And we're going to do most of America this year with the Stones. You know, we're very, very grateful to Bill Graham. We're very, very fortunate to be in that position. And also the band is really, really hitting it hard. You know, I mean, the musicians in the band. We got a new bass player from Detroit, Byron Miller. And it's the first time that I feel the band completely has control of that bottom, you know, so I can just soar like a bird anywhere I want to go and the cat will be there, you know.
I understand you got Francisco Alavea.
Well, we tried it with him for a while, but it is mainly what we were looking for was a timbale player, you know, and Francisco is a good timbale player, but mainly his forte is you know, is congas,
right?
You know, So we had
Hey, how you doing?
we had to let him go for a while.
I think I'm supposed to come in about a Christmas greeting. And where's Connie?
You just walked out.
Oh, okay. I'll find her. I'm supposed to see her.
Que loco. Can
I'm gonna stop.
okay. Is the tape started? Tell that Baboso never to come in here again. I forgot. We're talking about Francisco, que no?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Let me start off with another question then. Is there anything else you'd like to say, to the people of San Francisco?
Yeah, there's this is the year, of for us to come closer towards our child or our birthright, something that for us to claim, and that thing is perfection,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever you do, the way to go about it is not one way, there's not one technique, but there is one sure step, let's say, and that's to take time to ask yourself the question of questions, man. Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And where do you came from? And where are you going, and for who are you doing it? And once you find this, man, you're going to realize that we came from divinity and we're going back to divinity.
Mm-hmm.
And once we realize this, then we're going to realize that Jesucristo, Krishna, Buddha, Rama, Allah, all these beautiful manifestations of God,
Mm-hmm.
they're none other than our older brothers,
Mm-hmm.
telling us that we can be another Cristo, we can be another Krishna, and that there's only one God, and He's the absolute supremo, and He's the Father, and He's the one that's waiting for us. That's really why.
The special guest today has been el maestro de la guitarra, Devin Dip, Carlos Santana. Muchas gracias for being on the show, Carnal.
I'm staying.
Could I get a couple of autographs?
Sure.
Sí, me lo